Begin this hour in the U.S., where a former federal prosecutor, Renato Mariotti, says the legal case against Donald Trump is unlikely to conclude for years, estimating that the case could continue until 2025 or later. This is after the former U.S. President Donald Trump gave an address to his supporters after becoming the first former U.S. president to face criminal charges. Mr. Trump pleaded not guilty to 34 criminal charges. With the ongoing case against the former U.S. President, Donald Trump could face criminal charges in at least 2 other cases, including a special counsel probe into his efforts to overturn the 2020 election and his handling of classified information after leaving office. There is more in this report.
Which will be our greatest defeat, frankly.
Donald Trump made history becoming the first former U.S. president to be charged with a crime. Mr. Trump has called the investigation a personal and political witch hunt against him. Mr. Trump's motorcade left the Trump Tower early on Tuesday, arriving at the courthouse amid tight security, with the police separating pro- and anti-Trump demonstrators. When his motorcade arrived, he left the vehicle and waved to the crowd and cameras before entering the courthouse. He is the first former U.S. president in history to be charged with a crime, and the case could have serious ramifications for his ongoing bid for the White House as it unfolds over the coming months. One of the charges handed down in an indictment by a grand jury is an investigation related to a payment made on his behalf to an adult film star in 2016 in exchange for a silence about an alleged affair, which Mr. Trump has denied. Donald Trump pleaded not guilty to 34 felony counts of falsifying business records in a Manhattan courtroom. The charges were brought forth in an indictment by Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg.
We have a distinct and strong, I would say profound, independent interest in New York State. This is the business capital of the world. We regularly do cases involving false business statements. The bedrock, in fact, the basis for business integrity and a well-functioning business marketplace is true and accurate record keeping. That's the charge that's brought here, falsifying New York State business records.
Supporters of former President Donald Trump gathered in Palm Beach to await his return to Mar-a-Lago after his arraignment in Manhattan.
I'm not too happy what happened, what they did in New York City, and they closed the whole city down. A couple of $1 million it cost them, a couple of $100 million, they closed it. I don't think that was right. They could have even done it, as a video tour. I just think they're trying to get him, and that's it.
Donald Trump has been the best president that we have seen in the history. He's being targeted when he should be, let's just say. He didn't do anything wrong. I think he's done a great job for this country. You can look at all the statistics, the inflation, 1.4% inflation, $1.87 gas, energy independence, Abraham Accords, great trade deals, everything. Our country was fantastic when he was in office.
Donald Trump, who spoke at Mar-a-Lago after traveling to New York, denied all wrongdoing and has denounced the investigation by the Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg.
It's where we were today, in a city that was so great just 4 or 5 years ago. But now we're there, spent time there today, as you possibly read, with a local failed district attorney charging a former president of the United States for the first time in history on a basis that every single pundit and legal analyst said, there is no case. There's no case. They kept saying, there's no case.
The former U.S. president called for the case against him to be dropped immediately.
But now they have really stepped up their efforts by indicting the 45th president of the United States, who received $75 million votes, which is more than any sitting president in the history of our country. And in the wings, they've got a local racist Democrat district attorney in Atlanta who is doing everything in her power to indict me over an absolutely perfect phone call, even more perfect than the one I made with the president of Ukraine. Remember, I kept saying that's a perfect call. This one was more perfect.
He also spoke on the current state of the U.S. and the Russia-Ukraine war.
That's the country in which we live, however, right now. The USA is a mess. Our economy is crashing. Inflation is out of control. Russia has joined with China. Can you believe that? Saudi Arabia has joined with Iran. China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea have formed together as a menacing and destructive coalition. Would have never happened if I were your president. Would never have happened. Nor would Russia attacking Ukraine have happened. All of those lives would be saved. All of those beautiful cities would be standing. Our currency is crashing and will soon no longer be the world standard, which will be our greatest defeat, frankly, in 200 years. There will be no defeat like that.
Meanwhile, the White House has revealed it is currently focused on the American people, despite the indictment charges and investigation against the former president.
It's an ongoing case, so we're just not going to comment on the case specifically itself. Look, the president's going to focus on the American people like he does every day. He is not, this is not something that is a focus for him. He is going to focus on things like making sure that we continue to lower prices for the American people. Of course, this is playing out on many of the networks here on a daily basis for hours and hours. So obviously he will catch part of the news when he has a moment to catch up on the news of the day. But this is not his focus for today.
While a criminal conviction will not prevent Mr. Trump from either running for president or reclaiming the Oval Office, the prolonged legal fight could prove a major distraction for the Republican frontrunner and may add a new layer of turmoil to his party's primary.
Okay, Fa Lebati is a global affairs analyst and he joins me on board now. Thank you so much for joining us. Donald Trump is known for his bravado whenever he appeared in public, but he surrendered into court looking more somber, even while he was giving a speech. What do you make of these charges Mr. Trump have been indicted on?
Putting the doom and gloom picture that the former president is painting of the United States of America, put that aside, this is a very serious case, a very serious issue, and my hope is that him and his legal team are taking this seriously. What we know, if you read the statement of facts, according to the DA, said the defendant, Donald J. Trump, repeatedly and fraudulently falsified New York business records to conceal criminal conduct that hid damaging information from the voting public during the 2016 presidential election. In essence, what they're alleging is that when he was running for election in 2016, there were a lot of negative stories that was going to come out against him that would potentially prevent him from winning the presidential election or even the Republican primary. So he decided to come up with a scheme to protect his electoral prospects. That is where we are. And in the process of putting that scheme together, he paid off a lot of people that he should not have paid off. He paid off his lawyer, that he should not have paid off, and made those a business expense. So these are really serious cases. Besides, let's not forget, his personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, went to jail for the same case that he is being tried for today. So I sincerely hope that himself and his lawyers are taking this case really seriously.
Well, not many protesters came out, not many showing by the Trump supporters, even though Donald Trump tried to whip sentiments to get more devotion from his supporters, but it didn't really come out as would expected. How do you explain this?
I think people at a certain point are just getting tired of the antics, right? There's a lot of antics, there's a lot of bombastic, there's a lot of bravado, and it's all talk. And so I do think that even his supporters, when they actually sit down to read the statement of fact as laid out by the district attorney, to read the 24 counts indictment as laid out by the district attorney, they will realize that, look, there is something here, right? So that's one. And don't forget, there's also the issue of the electoral interference in Georgia that is happening. There's also the other issue with trying to to overthrow the government. That is happening. There's also another issue with regards to the classified documents that were found at Mar-a-Lago. That is something else. So at the end of the day, when you look at it, it's just one legal issues after the other. And let's not forget, Trump, we have, I think, approximately 10 Trump associates that have either been arrested or sent to jail as a result of their involvement with Donald J. Trump. So I think his supporters are beginning to notice that and say, look, what is going on here? Why always him?
Well, even though they were able to rally about $8 million, towards his campaign. But then you and I have watched Donald Trump speak and address the press at large gatherings, but he often seems to veer off what he has on the teleprompter and script. But this time, anything Donald Trump says might be used against him in the court. Are we likely, going to be seeing a more careful Trump going forward?
If he wants to stay out of jail, he should stick to the teleprompter. And like you said, anything he says will be used against him in the court of law. Now he's under a severe microscope. And any misstatement, any mischaracterization, any misstatements of facts will be used against him in the court of law. So he's got to be very, very careful. At the end of the day, it's going to be up to his lawyers. And we all know Donald Trump and how bombastic he could be, and he doesn't take any advice. But he needs to be very, very careful this time around. And at the same time, though, just quickly going back on the issue with supporters, we know what happened on January 6th when his supporters stormed to the Capitol. And we've seen a situation whereby, most of those supporters that stormed the Capitol, a lot of them will also be sent to jail. Some of them that never had a criminal record before, all of a sudden they all have criminal records, their lives has been turned upside down. And then, these folks are beginning to realize, is this actually worth it for me to put myself on the line for Donald Trump, get arrested, and have my life upside down while nothing happens to him? So I think there are a few conversations that I believe that are going on within his base right now.
Absolutely. So Mr. Trump is currently the front runner among all declared and potential contenders for the Republican White House nomination. Insisted these charges are politically, they're political witch hunts against his ambition to run for president. So can Mr. Trump turn this prosecution into an electoral asset, do you think?
There is a possibility. So when you look at this case, right, so there is the legal angle and then there is the political angle. Earlier on, you look at the situation with Bill Clinton. When Bill Clinton was investigated for a good 5 years by the special prosecutor, Ken Starr, throughout his so-called relationship with Monica Lewinsky. And at the end of that, we saw a situation whereby Bill Clinton actually came out politically, but although he wasn't running for re-election, again, because he had already done his 8 terms. Right, but what Bill Clinton also did throughout that process was when he was leaving office, he made a deal with the special prosecutor where he lost his Arkansas driver's license for 5 years. And so as a result of that, he was able to avoid the indictment. Well, we all know Donald Trump is Bill Clinton. Is he going to benefit from this? Like I said earlier, he's raised more than $7-8 million. That remains to be seen. It is a possibility. He is the biggest elephant in the room right now when it comes to the Republican Party, and everybody seems to be afraid of him. So we'll see.
Then it remains to be seen, because the next case will be in December, and it remains to be seen what happens between now and then. Global Affairs analyst Okemfa Labati, thank you so much for your time. Thank you.